You're broadcasting your entire existence like you need witnesses to confirm it's real, posting every thought, every meal, every moment, as if your life doesn't count unless it's documented and validated by an audience of people who scroll past you in 3 seconds without really seeing anything. The constant need to show everything isn't confidence, it's insecurity dressed up as transparency. It's this desperate attempt to prove you're living, you're valuable, you're worth paying attention to, and every post is really just asking the same question: do I matter yet? People who are actually secure in themselves don't need to broadcast their security, they don't need to announce their wins, they don't need to perform their happiness for strangers, they just live, and the living itself is enough without requiring documentation and distribution. But you've been conditioned to believe that if something isn't shared, it didn't happen, that experiences only have value if they generate engagement, that your worth is somehow connected to your visibility. And now, you can't do anything without immediately thinking about how it will look online, how many likes it will get, whether it's interesting enough to post. You're not living your life anymore, you're curating content, you're managing a brand, you're performing for an algorithm, and somewhere in all that performing, you forgot what it feels like to do something just because you want to do it, not because it will photograph well. The people you think are impressed by your constant posting aren't impressed. They're exhausted by you. They're watching you desperately seek validation. And it makes them uncomfortable because it's so obvious, so transparent, so needy. Real power moves in silence, real confidence doesn't need an audience. Real strength is doing important things and never mentioning them because the doing was enough, the outcome was the reward, and external validation was never part of the equation. Every time you post something vulnerable, something real, something that should be private, you're training yourself to need external processing for internal experiences, you're outsourcing your emotional regulation to people who don't care about you. You're turning your life into content for consumption by people you'll never meet who will forget you the second they scroll past. You think you're being authentic. But authenticity isn't the same as constant disclosure. Authenticity is being true to yourself even when nobody's watching, especially when nobody's watching. You're giving away your power every time you need strangers to validate your choices, your relationships, your accomplishments, your pain, because you're essentially saying that you don't trust your own experience unless other people confirm it's valid. The more you share, the less mystery you have. And mystery is where power lives, in the parts of you that people don't get to access in the life you're living, that isn't for show, in the version of you that exists without an audience. You've turned yourself into an open book and then wondered why nobody treats you like you're worth reading carefully, why people feel entitled to comment on every aspect of your life, why boundaries feel impossible when you've been broadcasting everything without boundaries. Showing everything all the time doesn't make you relatable. It makes you predictable. It makes you easy to read, easy to dismiss, easy to scroll past, because there's no depth left to discover when you've already put it all on display. The strongest people you know barely post. They're too busy actually living to stop and document every moment. They're too secure in themselves to need your validation. They're too focused on building real things to waste time building a fake image. You're exhausted from maintaining the performance, from keeping up with the algorithm, from competing for attention with everyone else who's just as desperate to be seen. And deep down you know that none of it is actually making you feel better. It's making you feel emptier, because the more you seek external validation, the less you trust your own internal compass. Every notification is a tiny hit of dopamine that wears off immediately and leaves you craving more, and you've turned yourself into an addict. Constantly checking, constantly refreshing, constantly measuring your worth by metrics that have nothing to do with actual worth. The people who really know you are probably tired of seeing a version of your life that doesn't match the reality they see when they're with you. Tired of watching you perform happiness while knowing you're struggling. Tired of being in a relationship with someone who's always halfway in a conversation because the other half is thinking about content. You're not weak for having a hard time. You're weak for needing everyone to know you're having a hard time, for turning your pain into performance, for using vulnerability as currency in the attention economy. Real vulnerability is selective. It's reserved for people who've earned access to your inner world. It's not something you broadcast to strangers for likes. You've confused visibility with value, attention with connection, followers with friends, and now you're trapped in this cycle where you need more and more exposure to feel like you exist. The freedom you're looking for isn't in finally going viral, finally getting seen, finally being validated by enough people that you can believe you matter. The freedom is in stopping and disappearing from the feed, in discovering that your life is still full and rich and meaningful even when nobody's watching. You've been performing so long that you don't know who you are without the audience, don't know what you like without checking if other people will like it too, don't know how to process your own emotions without posting them first. The strongest version of you is the one that exists in private. The one who does important work without announcing it, who has meaningful relationships without posting them, who builds a life that doesn't require documentation to feel real. Stop showing everything. Start protecting your energy. Start moving in silence. Start keeping the best parts of your life private, so they can't be consumed and commented on by people who have no stake in your actual well-being. Delete the apps for a week, see what happens, see if you disappear from existence, or if maybe you finally start existing more fully. Because you're not constantly interrupting your own experience to capture it for strangers. Notice how much time you get back, how much mental energy you recover, how much more present you become when you're not always thinking about the next post, the next story, the next update. The people who matter will still be there, and the people who only connected with your content will disappear. And that's information you need about who's actually in your life versus who's just consuming your life. Start doing things without telling anyone. Start having experiences that are just for you. Start building a version of your life that doesn't need external validation because it's so aligned with who you actually are that you don't care what anyone else thinks about it. Let people wonder about you. Let them be confused by your absence. Let them make up stories about why you disappeared. Because while they're speculating, you'll be actually living instead of performing life. The mystery makes you interesting. The silence makes you powerful. The privacy makes you untouchable. And all of those things are what you lose when you're constantly broadcasting. You're not obligated to share your joy, your pain, your success, your struggles. You're allowed to experience things fully without immediately thinking about how to package them for consumption. The strongest people aren't the most visible ones. They're the ones who know what to keep to themselves, who understand that not everything needs to be shared, who have the discipline to protect their inner world from the constant demand to perform. Stop showing everything. Stop proving yourself. Stop seeking validation from people who don't know you and couldn't care for you even if they wanted to. Build a life that's so full offline that you forget to check online. Cultivate relationships that are too deep to be reduced to posts. Do work that's too important to interrupt for content creation. The respect you're seeking isn't going to come from more exposure, it's going to come from having standards about what you share and with whom, from being someone who values their own privacy enough to protect it, from building a reputation based on what you do rather than what you say you're doing. Let your life speak for itself through the results you create, the relationships you build, the person you become. Not through the image you project on a screen. The weakness isn't in having problems. It's in needing everyone to know about them. The weakness is in seeking comfort from strangers instead of doing the hard work of comforting yourself. Show less, do more, be more, and watch how much stronger you feel when you're not constantly giving away your power to an audience that was never really paying attention anyway. You've been convinced that disappearing means dying, that if you're not online, you're nowhere. But the truth is the opposite. Being offline is where life actually happens, where you can breathe without performing, where you can exist without evidence, where you can build something real that doesn't require an audience to validate it. Stop showing up for people who aren't showing up for you. Stop performing for an algorithm that will never be satisfied. Stop measuring your worth by metrics that were designed to keep you addicted. And start living like your life belongs to you, not to your feed, not to your followers, not to the endless scroll that will continue with or without you, but you only get one life and you're spending it trying to prove it's worth living instead of actually living it.